welcome you to this very important meeting, Thursday, May 2nd, 2016, in the City of Portsmouth City Council Chambers. And I would like to ask Commissioner Hoffler to please give invocation and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Let us stand. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us out today. Continue to guide and protect us as we do the work of the City of Portsmouth today. And continue to put your loving blessings upon us today and as always. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoffler. Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, we will now have roll call. Please indicate your presence electronically. Five members of the Planning Commission are present.
Commissioners, before you are the minutes of the April 4th, 2017 public hearing. If there aren't any questions, we are in need of a motion and a second. Commissioner Thompson.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the April 4th public hearing.
Commissioner G.
I second the motion.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second to approve the April the 4th, 2017 public hearing. You may please vote electronically. This item is approved 5-0. Announcements of future meetings and conferences. Please note our next work session is Tuesday, June the 6th, 2017 at 12:30 p.m., 6th floor conference room, followed by public hearing at 1:30 p.m., City Council Chamber. Items that are reviewed today will be presented to City Council for action at their June 13th or June the 27th public hearing, or as otherwise noted. Planning Commission rules limit a speaker up to 5 minutes to speak. We also ask that everyone please silence your cell phones at this time if you have not already done so. Our first item is UP-17-01 Uptown. Request of Wendy's Property, LLC for a use permit to construct a restaurant with a drive-through window at 835 London Boulevard. The property is owned by Portsmouth Redevelopment and Housing Authority and is located in the D2 Form-Based Code District. The applicant is also requesting approval of deviation from D2 Form-Based Code standards and requirements, including the height of the first floor, the length of the building facade, also a blank rear wall, the requirement from EVES, the spacing of curve cuts into the property, the front setback, and the location type and character of the signage. The property is located in an area designated on the Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map as a mixed-use corridor and is also referenced as Tax Map 24, parcels 81, 82, 83, 84, 86, 87, 106, 107, 108, 109, and 110. Staff Coordinator John Hartley.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, as the Secretary just read, there are a number of items that are included in this request. First and foremost is a use permit for the drive-through window, which is required of all drive-through windows associated with fast food restaurants in the city. In addition, the applicant is asking for a number of deviations or modifications from the D2 standards and requirements. And just to kind of cover some of the information we discussed also in the work session, The reasoning behind the request for the deviations is the ordinance used to have a Type 2 process, if you recall, when it was adopted in 2010. And in 2012, there was a Supreme Court decision, a state Supreme Court decision, associated with a case in Albemarle County that essentially eliminated that Type 2 process across Virginia. And hence, with the use permit, modifications were made in the ordinance to allow deviations to the standards. And that was more formally addressed in the amendments that you considered at your last meeting, and will go to City Council this month. What you have is an application to build a Wendy's restaurant. The zoning map on the left shows you the parcels involved. There are a number of them. Essentially, it is vacant land that has been assembled by Portsmouth Redevelopment and Housing Authority over the last, I'd say, 15 years. And maybe even longer, they finally acquired the last remaining piece in 2015 and have been marketing the property since then. What is proposed today is a Wendy's restaurant. And it is proposed where the red star is located. And if I can use my pointer, this is directly adjacent to McDonald's, which is on the corner of Effingham and London Street, London Boulevard. Across the street, you have a Pizza Hut, a Hardee's. On the same side of the street, in addition to the McDonald's, you have a Kentucky Fried Chicken, hotels, a number of other what you might call commercial auto-related businesses along the London Boulevard corridor. This is a photograph of the site. On your left, you can see the landscaping adjacent to the parking lot of McDonald's. This particular site is bounded on 3 sides by public streets. It fronts on London. To the west is Chestnut. To the south is Queen Street. And you can see one of our fine orange signs in the middle of the property announcing to the public that there is a public hearing. These photos, the top photo shows the Hardee's and Pizza Hut on the north side from the site. To the west is the lower photo shows Kentucky Fried Chicken, the Stoneworks, and then a hotel. But it does give you a sense of some of the uses that surround this property. So in addition to the use permit, there are 10 deviations or modifications that are being requested. If you read essentially these first 5, they all deal with the design of the building. For example, item number 1, essentially the ordinance requires a 2-story building. What they are building has many characteristics of a 2-story, but it is in fact a 1-story facility. And I'll go through these in more detail if you'd like, but essentially all of these are design standards for how the building is located on the site, and the separation of things like parking and landscaping and so on within the site itself. Number 6 here I'll talk about a little more when we get to the conceptual site plan, which deals with the curb cuts. Item 7 is the facade and where it's located, and so on. 8 and 9 deal with similar issues. And then the last item here, item number 10, deals with signage, and what kind of signing is allowed by the D2 form-based code. So these are renderings of the colored renderings of what the building will look like. And you've got the issue of the signage. Essentially, what signage is allowed is in a sign band that you would typically see in a downtown area, where the signage is in between the first and second floor as a sign band. What they're proposing is their corporate logo, and you can see a representation of that. They are also proposing a monument sign, which you have a graphic in your packet that shows that monument sign, as well as the conceptual site plan as to where it would be located. This would be the west elevation facing Chestnut Street on the top, and the east elevation, which is the drive-through order window and pickup window. And then the conceptual plan. We worked fairly closely with Wendy's in working out the designs of this. As we've stated in a number of instances, we encourage them to do everything they could to comply with the standards. The difficulty is that really when you look at the form-based code standards, while a fast food restaurant with a drive-through is allowed with a use permit, the design standards make it virtually impossible to actually design a site and accommodate a drive-through window. In this case, you've got two order boards. They are interior to the development of the property, which is something we always encourage. And in terms of the access, originally this was proposed as the entrance off of London was proposed as a two-way entrance. As a result of a traffic impact analysis, the site is now designed essentially as one way, so that traffic entering the property would come off of Chestnut. There would be no access off of London, and the exit from the property would be to London. So it really creates a fairly good flow pattern on the site. Other things related to this are parking setbacks are required to be 30 feet from the street. This parcel is not big enough to accommodate that, as well as accommodate the parking that they need. The building's supposed to be right up to the street. In lieu of that, they have designed a patio at the corner of Chestnut and London, and they'll use a short brick wall and an iron fence to separate that from the sidewalk and the public right-of-way. So in many ways, while the letter of the ordinance hasn't been met, they've established a presence on that corner that is generally consistent with the intent of the form-based code provisions. So you've got really before you two issues. One is the use permit, two are the modifications. And staff has evaluated all of this, and we would recommend approval of the use permit and approval of the modifications requested with the conditions that are suggested in your staff report. And essentially those conditions deal with locking in consistency with the concept plan that is on the screen now, as well as the elevations that I showed, and a provision that allows the city engineer to work with the applicant in redesigning the exit onto London to discourage right-hand turns into the property. With that, I'll try to answer any questions that you have. All in all, we think this is a pretty good project, certainly better than those that are around it that were approved prior to 2010. So we're kind of in support of this. Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Holly. Any questions for Mr. Holly, commissioners? Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item UP-17-01. I have a few registered speakers. The first speaker is Lisa Murphy. You would come forward. You have up to 5 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Vice Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. For the record, my name is Lisa Murphy. I'm a local attorney with an office at 999 Waterside Drive across the river in the city of Norfolk. And I'm here today on behalf of the applicant, Wendy's Properties, LLC. As some of you may recall, I was here last month speaking in support of the amendment to your D2 district form-based code to open up all sorts of deviations and modifications to be included in the use permit process as opposed to the variance process. As Mr. Hartley indicated, we do appreciate the fact that staff, planning staff and zoning staff have spent countless hours with Wendy's Properties, members of our engineering team who are here today, and with PRHA to really find a solution that met the spirit of it and intent of the D2 district design requirements and building requirements, as Mr. Hartley indicated, but also would give Wendy's the ability to not only compete with the surrounding uses and to be compatible with the surrounding uses, but to be able to operate in a safe and efficient manner. And as you see the site plan before you, we really think enables us to achieve that. And we're appreciative of having staff support of this application, which is, again, the use permit for the drive-through, as well as the use permit for the deviations and modifications to the form-based code. As is indicated in the staff report, you know, the goals of the comprehensive plan, as well as the underlying goals of the D2 district, really line up nicely with PRHA's goal, which is to foster economic development, to take properties that are blighted or underutilized and to put them back onto the city's tax rolls. And fortunately, the application that you have before you does all of those things. It also enables us to promote mixed-use, pedestrian-friendly land use, as Mr. Hartley indicated, to raise the bar on quality development in the area, as was indicated, and again, to convert property that was tax exempt back to the rent rolls. Just to go over a few of the items, and I'm probably not going to be able to do this, but as far as promoting pedestrian-friendly access, you'll see these circles here. This is a patio, and the patio itself frames this corner in such a way. There is a fence wall that's a 1-foot masonry block, and then it's got a nice sort of faux wrought iron fencing along there. And it really softens the corner, makes it pedestrian friendly, and achieves some of those design features of bringing the facade up to the right-of-way lines. One of the biggest challenges we had with this property, as we discussed with staff and with the BZA, was the narrowness of this particular property and the fact that it does have access on London and Chestnut Streets and then Queen Street there at the rear. But what we've done is really, again, soften the facade, make it pedestrian friendly, and to meet the spirit of the setback, the parking setback, and the landscaping requirements by really enhancing the landscaping along London Boulevard. There'll be landscaping separating this use from the McDonald's use, and then there'll be landscaping and a sidewalk along Queen Street. As Mr. Hartley indicated, the way this is designed in order to accommodate the drive-through, all of the incoming traffic is going to be coming off of Chestnut Street, will come into the property. People who are going to go inside will park. People that are going to use the drive-through will go through the drive-through here. So it really makes sense that the access or the exit only off of London makes sense. So the flow will be into the property from Chestnut and then out onto London Boulevard, as the traffic impact analysis indicates. One of the other challenges we had, and obviously having that curb cut on London Boulevard is very important for that traffic flow. One of the other challenges we had is, as your staff report indicates, London Boulevard is 6 lanes, 45 miles an hour. So we really do need the signage in order to have folks be able to turn in time on Chestnut to be able to come into the Wendy's. Unfortunately, if they miss the signage, which is going to be here on the corner, the freestanding monument sign, if they miss that signage coming down London Boulevard, they're going to have to go all the way around and back. So
Excuse
again,
me, Ms. Murphy, you have 1 minute left.
Oh, okay. So again, signage is really important. But fundamentally, what we've tried to do is, again, as I said, really meet the requirements, or where we couldn't meet the requirements, try to meet the spirit and intent of the design features of the D2 district form-based code to not only elevate the design of all of the properties around it, but to give Wendy's the ability to, again, compete with the surrounding uses and to do so in a safe and efficient manner. I've got Brian Donahue here from PRHA, who's available to answer questions, who's spent a lot of time on this project. Nathan Leahy from MSAPC, the engineers, is also available. I'm happy to answer questions, but the staff supports this application with all of the modifications that we've proposed, as well as the use permit for the drive-through. I can tell you that we need all of the modifications that were proposed, so we would appreciate your support and recommendation that the use permit to include the drive-through and all of the listed modifications be recommended for approval to City Council, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, any questions for Ms. Murphy? Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item UP-17-01. Mr. Chairman and Planning Commissioners, as Ms. Murphy stated, Nathan Leahy and Brian Donahue are here if you have any questions for them.
Commissioners, do you have any additional questions? There are none.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item UP-17-01. If there's anyone here who did not get an opportunity to register and would like to address this application, you may come forward, state your name and your address, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak. Appearing to be none, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, this public hearing is now closed.
Members of the Planning Commission, we are in need of a motion and a second for UP 17-01 with conditions. Mr. Vaughn?
Yes, I move to make an approval of the use permit UP 17-01 along with the modifications.
Mr. G?
I second the motion.
Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second to approve UP-17-01. You will be voting electronically. This item is approved 5-0. Our next item, UP-17-02 downtown. Tim Jones with CJN Real Estate Holdings is requesting a use permit to convert the second and third floors of the building at 467 Court Street to up to 15 apartments for an overall density of over 100 units to the acre. The property is presently zoned D1 downtown in the T5 sub-district and was formerly occupied by the Mansion nightclub. The property is designated on the Comprehensive Plan future land use map in the mixed-use downtown area and is further described as Tax Map 6, Parcel 90. Staff Coordinator Stacy Porter.
Good afternoon. All right, I'll give an overview of the applicant's proposal. As As you can see from the map on the slide, on the left of the slide, the property is zoned downtown T5. According to the zoning ordinance, a use permit is required for multifamily development in the downtown T5 zoning district. The property is 0.1 acres in size, and that is 4,356 square feet, and contains a 4-story brick building, as you can see in this slide. The floor area of the building is 18,160 square feet and was constructed in 1935. In more recent years, it is a former location of Brudy's Restaurant on the first floor and the nightclub The Mansion on the upper floors. I'll now provide an overview of the surrounding area land uses. The properties is surrounded to the north by office uses, a restaurant, and a church, and to the east by a surface parking lot. To the south, it is surrounded by Tidewater Community College's Visual Arts Center. And to the west, by the City of Portsmouth's Cultural Arts Center and a multi-use building housing apartments and the Steel Restaurant within an English basement. Now, the next few slides, I'll provide the floor plans for the first through the third floors. Of course, they can be better viewed in your staff packets. According to the submitted floor plans, and I'll just provide this correction from our earlier work session discussion, the floor plans reflect 7 apartments, and they will be luxury apartments. According to the applicant, the fourth floor is not a complete floor and may be expanded in the future to provide for additional apartments. Therefore, the use permit request is for up to 15 apartments. The first floor plan, as I've shown here on the slide, this is the area that will be devoted for commercial or future retail. This is the second floor plan and second floor mezzanine plan. And as you can see from this floor plan, will be 1 apartment, as well as the restrooms that will support the commercial use on the first floor. Also, a portion of the second floor may be devoted to additional restaurant seating or banquet space as applicable. And also, we have the third and third floor mezzanine plans where will house the rest of the apartments, the other 6 apartments. Staff finds that the proposed mixed-use structure complies with the comprehensive plan and is compatible with uses found within a downtown regional activity center and the surrounding land uses in the downtown T5 zoning district. Therefore, we recommend the approval of the applicant's request with the conditions listed in the staff report. And that concludes the presentation.
Commissioners, are there any questions for Ms. Porter? Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing on item UP-17-02. If there's anyone here who would like to address this application, you may come forward, state your name and your address for the record, and you will be given up to 5 minutes to speak. Appearing to be none, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, this public hearing is now closed.
Commissioners, the chair is in need of a motion and a second for UP 17-02. Commissioner Vaughn.
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we approve UP 17-02.
Is there a second? Commissioner G.
I'd like to second that motion.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, if you could please make note that the recommendation would include the conditions that have been proposed with the staff report.
Commissioner Vaughn.
Yes, I'd like to revise the approval on 17-2 to include the conditions recommended by the staff.
Commissioner G.
I still do second that motion.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion and a second to approve UP-17-02 with conditions as noted in the staff report. You will be voting electronically. This item is approved 5-0.
Madam Secretary, I believe that concludes our agenda for today. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Commissioners, would you have any further business that we need to discuss? Mr. Baldwin, is there any further business?
No, sir.
There being none, this meeting is now adjourned.